A very good morning to you. This is Your World. Of course, when it is exactly 8 a.m., you know it is time for Your World. So thank you very much for making time for us. My name is Winnie Lubembe, and of course today we want to understand the state of drought and hunger, and this is across the Horn of Africa, because hunger affects 828 million people, impacting children and women worst and fast. After steadily declining for a decade, world hunger is on the rise, affecting nearly 10% of people globally. So Kenya is currently facing a severe water shortage caused by 4 failed consecutive rainy seasons amid one of the harshest droughts in the East African region that has been seen in 4 decades. So the question is then, what do we do? How do we maneuver throughout the situation? What is it that we can do to make the lives of those ones affected? Because we're all affected, but of course there is a section of people who are worst affected by the ongoing drought, and not only in the country but also globally as well. So of course that is what we want to understand today. We want to stick around until the end of the conversation, but like we usually say, you are part of the show. So if you have any question, if you have a comment, feel free to pass them our way, and that is through our social media handles at NTV Kenya, at Lubembe_Winnie, that is on Twitter as well. Of course, we'll be reading your feedback as we continue with the conversation. But if you want to call in live and see maybe one of the ways that you can do to help the people, or you just have a contribution as far as the show is concerned, again, feel free to do so. The numbers will be down on your screen in just a moment. But let me introduce my guest for today, James Mathenge, who is an acting regional director, Action Against Hunger. This is the Horn and East African region. It's so good to see you this morning. How are you doing?
Thank you, Winnie.
Karibu sana.
Thank you for creating this space.
Yes.
Thanks.
Most welcome. I mean, there's a conversation ongoing, especially when you talk about drought, and then we have COP27. We'll be touching a little bit about COP27 and what should be discussed, in COP27, and also implemented, not just discussed, right? Yeah. But let's just take a look at the numbers and draw that picture for us, as far as drought is concerned. Just give us a bit of a context, not only here, in Kenya, but also at the Horn of Africa.
I think you mentioned it, and that is accurate. That is over 828 million people go to bed hungry every day. In other words, as you go to bed, you cannot afford. But the situation has been getting even worse. Among those 828 million, we are talking about 205 that is very acute.
Oh, wow.
And this is the problem. The 205 million globally that's acutely they cannot afford food, 47 million comes from the Horn of Africa.
All right.
That is to say 22% of the most hungry people, they are within us.
All right.
That is Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, up to Djibouti, the countries surrounding here. Yeah. And unfortunately for some of our 3 countries, our neighboring countries, Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia, we have 36 million people out of the 47 from the Horn of Africa.
That's a lot, yeah.
And what that really means is that for all the hungry people, you can imagine 22% come from our region.
Sad.
And unfortunately, the situation is even getting worse because the rains that had been expected, we didn't receive them, as you know.
Yeah.
So this is an evolving situation. By all signs, all indicators are showing that the situation will move from bad to worse. And if action is not quickly taken, things will be very catastrophic. Already, because Action Against Hunger, we are working in different parts of the Horn of Africa. We have been experiencing some of the most severe, painful, tragic situations. And
it's very saddening and sometimes unfair, to see a number of people who, again, access to basic needs, water, right? we need food, we need, you know, clothing, we need all those things. Sometimes it's unfair to see how even children are really suffering from, they cannot access some of these basic needs that you know, they should have because of, again, ongoing a number of factors, and of course climate change being one of them. We're experiencing drought as well in the country. You work very closely with the communities. And talking to these communities and just painting that picture for us in terms of, you know, what is it? What is the situation like? Because I think majority of the times when we say, yeah, there's lack of water, sometimes some people might not really get it. It's especially when it comes to the impact of the same. For that is lack of, you know, water, lack of food. So just paint that picture for us, especially when we're talking about children, when we're talking about women, and even animals that are dying, that they depend on for food, you know, and milk, for example. Yeah, well, to focus on, first of all, the Horn of Africa, particularly our three countries, that is Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia, where we have got over 36 million people that are quite hungry. It's very painful. Can you imagine, Winnie, a mother watching the baby that she has carried for 9 months? How painful it is to watch a baby die because you cannot even be able to produce enough, you cannot be able to breastfeed. So the most vulnerable are little children and the mothers, particularly lactating mothers or pregnant mothers. And these are some of the realities that we come across in all the places where we are working. We have what we are calling displacement, you know, internal displacement, because some areas, like in Somalia, it's very difficult to reach. So what's happening is people are moving for some of them over 10, 20 kilometers to go to near places where they can be able to ask for food or to, you know, maybe they can get organizations. I know Action Against Hunger, we are privileged to work in some very hard to reach areas, but we cannot be everywhere. And so what's happening is that mothers are having to carry their babies in some cases to walk to the nearby maybe centers. And unfortunately, other places are very terribly insecure. You know that in this region, we have lost close to 9 million livestock. And that is the livelihood. You know, when a camel or a donkey or goat and cows die, you've been seeing all these pictures of dead animals. And that's the reality on the ground. So unfortunately, some of the time, sometimes when these families come to our centers where we receive them and we feed them and we treat them, it may be too late, because again they have been working for a long time. So by the time they come, they are emaciated. They are very weak. Fortunately, because we have quite some good experience and we are working alongside other partners. We have medical people. Our success rate have been quite high. But our fear is the fact that it is ongoing unless we get some special attention and special focus and work together with the governments, the development partners, the situation is bound to become even worse. Even worse, and of course, just recently from again the ongoing COP27, you know, we had the statement that we're actually on a highway to hell if nothing is being done now, you know, to sort of like reverse the situation, because climate change is here and it's real and it's affecting almost all of us. So it's time that we act, and we act fast. But majority of the times when we're talking about acting, is like, where are our priority areas? What is it that we need to focus on first? Because if we look at the long-term goals, people are dying right now. So what are some of those things that we need to do now to prevent more deaths? And even, and this is when it comes to humans as well as animals, even as we work towards the long-term goal. We'll be looking at that in just a moment. But there's also the statement that I just want us to sort of get deeper into it, and that is there's more than enough food produced in the world that is to feed everyone. But still, like we said, you know, more than as many as 828 million people are still going hungry because there's no food. Can we just help us really understand this statement? The fact that we say there's more than enough food produced, you know, but someone might ask and say, but where is this food? Why is it that people still dying of hunger? That's the tragic reality of our time. You know, when I was a young boy, I know that when we planted, I come from Laikipia, and whenever we planted maize, 90% of the time we knew that we're going to harvest. 10%
we would fail. But you know, and even when we fail, at least we get some little for food. Or maybe our neighbors have got more on the neighboring counties or neighboring districts then. Well, this is not scientific, but the experience that you're getting from farmers, it's no those numbers have reversed. When you plant these days, 10% of times you harvest, 90% of the times you fail. Is the reality of the climate change. And unfortunately, the countries that are suffering are the least when it comes to climate change, you know, destruction. You know, when you look at the developed countries, the amount of emission is so high. But the consequence, the negative consequence, is being felt more and more in Africa, in the developing countries. But you know, most of the developed countries, they have improved their agricultural system. So they are able to
when ours is actually going.
When ours is dysfunctional, largely dysfunctional. Our agriculture is largely rain-fed. What does that mean? When you don't get rain on time, or when you get too much, because that has been the case, the harvest gets affected. And that's not the only thing, not just, you know, the effect of climate change, they are wide. Because even the type of pest, the type of insects, you know, just the other day we saw the locust, which is as a result of the
havoc,
so the reality is the countries that are least contributors are the ones that are suffering most compared. So yes, you go to some countries, they have a lot of food, enough to not just to feed themselves. Some of it they are, you know, they don't even know what to do with it. You know, storage is even some problematic for them. But having this food be made available to the countries that are in need, that has been the problem. And it is not just food, even the resources that are there today in the world. I think we have a problem of distribution. We also have got a problem of priority setting. You know, the last few months, because of the situation in Ukraine, the entire world has just been focusing on Ukraine. So it just, until recently, we started talking about the drought in the Horn of Africa.
Do you feel like sometimes we talk about this Ukraine war thing, like we use it more as an excuse? Unfortunately, right? But again, we're not going to get into that discussion right now, because we're looking for solutions. What is it that we need to do, right? Because our people are dying.
Because we are in this together. We're in this together. We don't underestimate the suffering in Ukraine. There is huge suffering, and especially now, really, our prayers are with the people of Ukraine. You can see the winter is coming, and some of the news we read is that electricity is not available. And you can imagine surviving in winter without electricity may be very difficult. So we know, yes, there is quite difficulties in Ukraine, but it will be immoral, it will be irresponsible to ignore the tragedy, the magnitude, like the one we're experiencing in the Horn of Africa and in the world. It would be immoral to ignore it. There's no justification.
There's no justification.
We are in this. The world is for all of us together.
That's true. I mean, if one continent is suffering, definitely all the other continents will also feel the impact of the same. And especially the drought, and especially here in Kenya and across the Horn of Africa. Of course, several counties have been mapped as the worst hit, you know, as compared to the others. And we talked about how sometimes our priorities are wrong. You know, as a country. And of course, what I know about the Action Against Hunger, you know, your organization is that you sort of like tailor-make, you know, solutions and approaches towards different, you know, parts of the country and even parts of the region that are deeply affected. So can you just take us through this tailor-making aspect? What exactly does that mean?
Thanks. Just first of all, a little bit about Action Against Hunger. We are working in over 40 countries. Our focus the next 5 years, and this is our second year, is to eliminate undernutrition for 25 million. And I think that would be substantial contribution. Working with our partners, our donor partners, and CBOs, communities, and governments. If we manage to eliminate undernutrition for 25 million, that would be a big feat. And our two areas of focus, number one is saving lives. Particularly at a time like this one, when the triggers are still active. The drought is ongoing. There are so many conflicts. You know, Winnie, quite a number of the places where we have ongoing drought, there's active conflict.
Oh yes, I mean, because we're scrambling for resources. If there's a well, just one here that serves 2 counties, of course.
Because of the scarce resources, there is a lot of competition if it is for water, and that resorts to communities rising against each other.
True.
And unfortunately, also we do have areas where we have ongoing fighting, active fighting, militia, government, between government and different militia. We have that in Ethiopia, we have that in Somalia. In Kenya, we do have some, some intercommunities, and lack of water, lack of enough resources, exaggerate. I mean, it increases this even more. The unique thing about Action Against Hunger is that we are on the ground.
Okay.
We are able to reach areas that are ordinarily very difficult for others to reach. And this is because over the years we have established excellent working relationship with the communities.
Oh, good.
And because of that, the areas that others would find it difficult to reach, we are able to reach. In Kenya, in particular, we are also working very closely with government. If you go to Mandela, if you go to Isiolo, we are providing nutritional supplies, including West Pokot. In the next few months, we'll be expanding this to 11 counties, some of those that are in dire needs. All right. And that is to say, kids that are identified that are suffering from acute malnutrition, then we can be able to save those lives. And because of being on the ground, we have become more and more creative and more innovative. We have tailor-made solutions, for particular areas. We normally say that science has been part of our foundation. Yes. Some of the feeds that are used to turn around a kid that is acutely malnutrited, we were involved in coming up with the formula, which is a good thing. Yeah, so we're involved in the nutrition. We are also involved in water. At the moment, because of lack of water for the communities, we do water tracking, although that's not really the main focus. The main focus, when things are normal, we do boreholes, we do water harvesting, we support the communities to harvest water. And we can see in areas where we have been able to sink boreholes or harvest water, communities are able to do farming, Yes. And we enter into a community when the community is in big need right now, and we don't leave immediately. Sure. So we will support them in saving lives. But then we go beyond that. We address, why is this community chronically hungry? What are those triggers? Can we go to the root causes? And we have succeeded in several parts of Kenya, several parts of the Horn of Africa, to address the root causes. And you will find that some of the root causes of hunger would be lack of water or rain-fed, just depending on rain-fed agriculture, maybe poor dysfunctional farming systems. So we go to the root. We come up with solutions that are tailor-made from community to community.
Yeah, it's true, because again, different communities have different needs. I mean, the baseline is we need food, we need water. Yes. That is the baseline. But even aside from that, what you're saying is that the causes might be a little bit different, because again, you might find that community A, there's a lot of conflict and all those things, so access to resources, is a bit, minimalized, as compared to other communities where, it doesn't matter what they plant, it just doesn't do well, because again, the drought is there. But then again, of course, right now, the world is moving towards adaptation. And would want to really understand, so adaptation and even working closely with the communities, what is it that they are doing, to sort of survive, if I can say, even as we look for long-term goals. So what are some of the things that you have seen the communities do, just to make sure that with the limited resources that they have, at least they're able to manage, get food on the table?
Well, some of the things that we see that are working, the climate-smart agriculture is good. We cannot continue with the way we have always done our agriculture. As I said, well, the feeling is 90% of the time it's not working when you depend on rain-fed agriculture. And it's not even quantity. If you can focus, even if it is small gardens, like we have seen some communities having kitchen gardens, which it is possible, it's much possible to water, as opposed to having many acres.
Large tracts of land.
So that even if there is no rains, But the waters that you are using from the kitchen, some of the leftovers, you can be able to use it to irrigate some kitchen garden, and you can grow vegetables. So that climate smart agriculture, it's a game changer in many of the communities, and the communities that have been able to adopt that are doing very well. Those who are able to harvest water when it rains, if you can put some water pans, small water pans, and we know several households that we have supported, and they are doing that. They harvest when the rain comes. You know, somebody said, sometimes we receive all our rain, only that we receive all of it in a day or two or a week.
Yes.
As opposed to, and this is the effect of climate change. In the past, we knew that the rains would be distributed over a period of several months. Remember, we used to talk about the long rains and the short rains. These days, we don't even know.
Very erratic.
We no longer know what is long rains and what is short rains. Sometimes you can have it in a week. But as a way of adopting, then we harvest that water. Community do harvest that water. And what that means is that you can be able to use it a little longer, even when drought persists. The other thing is also to make sure that you get drought-resistant crops. And unfortunately, these are some of the things that we had done away with. We have been growing some crops that are, you know, they come from outside. They come from temperate, they do well in temperate climates. And when we do them in our context, they are more vulnerable to pests, they are strange pests, because they cannot adapt to our context. The beauty in a country like Kenya is that we have got a lot of science taking place. We do have a breakdown of communication. If you go to the research centers, they have a lot of solutions. But to get those solutions to the users really then becomes a big problem. But we do have organizations. Action Against Hunger, we have also been working with research centers. We're involved in research. We're partnering with universities. We have universities in Tanzania, universities in Kenya, and the list continues. We work together so that the research that we come up with and can also be able to go to the final users.
And it's a good thing to see the communities also being involved, because they know what exactly they need. You know, at that time, even as we wait for help, wait for the government as well to act, it's good to see that they're also doing something. Although again, resources might be a bit you know, difficult. There's also the question of funding, which again sometimes it's just a whole ballgame you know, in itself. But let's take a break. When we come back, we want to understand we know that the UN agency is actually warning that by 2023 you know, there will be, the Horn of Africa would need you know, more food assistance. So the question is then, how do we plan for the same? How can governments as well plan for the same, as well as, you know, the private entities just coming in together to make sure that, you know, people are not dying of hunger really, especially now in 2022, even as we get towards, you know, 2023 and the years beyond. So let's take a short break, but of course when we come back we have so much to discuss. But like we said, if you have any question, any comment as far as the conversation, feel free to interact with us on our social media platforms at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and on Twitter, and tag me as well at Lubembe_Winnie. But if you have a question for Mr. Mathenge, then feel free to also do so. The numbers are down on your screen. But of course, all that is coming up after the break. Stay with us. This is Your World.
Learn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Lumina 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Last week, we looked at dark marks caused by hormonal imbalance. Today, let's look at dark marks caused by the most common factor, sun exposure. Hello, my name is Emma, and this is Learn in a Minute. Have you ever worn your favorite top? Then in the evening, when you get home and change, you find the whole outline of your top drawn on your skin? This is an example of hyperpigmentation caused by the sun exposure. Now imagine our face that is exposed to the sun every day. Panic not. Solution Eco. You need a serum that regulates this hyperpigmentation and a day cream with SPF 50 that will block this sun rays. I'm thinking Nivea Luminous 630. It starts working from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks. My name is Emma and this is Learn in a Minute.
Learn in a Minute, brought to you by Nivea Luminous 630 Anti-Dark Mark Serum.
Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Most of the times when we talk about hyperthyroidism, we just think that is a condition for the women who are above 40. How common is hyperthyroidism, and especially among the males?
When you talk about hyperthyroidism, then that means that the thyroid gland, for any reason, is starting to produce a lot of thyroid hormone. And when it's producing a lot of thyroid hormone, everything goes in hyper mode, in extra mode.
Trying to compensate and make
your
sure
heart rate
balance
goes high, your pulse goes really high.
Generally, I was feeling very odd in my body. I was very weak. You've noticed I stammer a lot. And when I stammer, it's like I jumpstart myself by hitting myself, So I use a lot of my hands for talking and everything. It helps me to communicate.
Did you know you can open a family bank account without having to visit a branch? Simply download PesaPap app from Google Play Store or Apple Store to enjoy freedom and convenience. All you need is your ID card, KRA PIN and camera phone.
Want to know the biggest story of the week? Do not worry. The Weekly Review has got you covered for in-depth analysis of politics, business, governance, as well as social issues. The Weekly Review covers it all. For well-researched, exclusive and investigative content, read the Weekly Review every Sunday on Nation e-paper and on www.nation.africa, free of charge.
Access to and the use of mobile phones in the sub-Saharan Africa has increased over the past decade. Mobile telephony has brought opportunities on the continent. A GSMA 2020 report projects that over 50% of the population in Africa will have access to mobile phones by 2025. However, limited digital skills and assistive technologies for the illiterate population and people with special needs is a major barrier. I am in Abidjan, the capital of Côte d'Ivoire, to find out how a smartphone innovation is working to bridge this gap.
We had to look inward. If the entire world is going crazy because there's no particular raw material and we have it in abundance, why are we not creating it and then sending those finished products to the world instead of sending our raw materials to the world?
New Sensodyne Repair and Protect with Deep Repair. It's a huge game changer for me. The science is pretty amazing because it really goes deep inside the tooth and repairs tooth sensitivity. It's going to improve the quality of my life in a big way.
All right, welcome back. Of course, glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and today it's all about the state of drought and hunger across the Horn of Africa. And of course, we have James Mathenge, who is an acting regional director, Action Against Hunger, as well as, in the Horn and East African region. And of course, James, thank you very much. It's a very pertinent question, conversation that we need to have really now, and especially we have COP27 ongoing. So again, like I said, we'll be talking about some of the things that you expect to hear from COP27, especially when it comes to the short-term solutions, right? Even as we move towards adaptation, all those things. So one of the things that you mentioned is the smart agriculture, which is sort of like helping. But my question is very quickly on smart agriculture before we talk about the 2023 and how the Horn of Africa would again need more food assistance. Is then how do you think we can scale up, the whole aspect of smart agriculture, especially when it comes to like kitchen gardens and all those things? Are there some of the ways that, or devices that we can use just to make sure that we scale scale up this to help save a lot of people?
There are many things that we can do, Winnie. First of all, we need to train our people. That there are solutions that we don't need scientists to come and do for us. Yeah.
Yes.
There are things that are not rocket science, you know, so we need to train. And fortunately, there are some small solutions that are very quick to adopt.
Okay.
They have been tested, they have been proven, and we just need to increase the people that are adopting to those solutions. So really more training, more support for those kind of farmers. I think that would help.
Yeah. And if we have the information, if we are aware of the things that we can do, because again, like we're saying, most of the time the solutions are in our hands.
Oh, yes.
You know, someone was saying, if you look at some parts of the country, there's a lot of wastage when it comes to food, and yet there's so many people who are actually dying of hunger. People are dying of starvation, as well. As having a conversation with someone, and they were saying, there's a place where they harvest a lot of cabbage, a lot of potatoes, lots of carrots, and these people are asking, so where exactly do I take this? Because again, we have a lot, you know, of the same, but then again, yes, to Tauza, but we won't sell
I saw that
it's like we have to
Winnie.
give this. Yeah.
This week there was somebody who was some farmers who are complaining.
Yeah.
In Narok.
Yes.
Where they have a lot of food, but the roads are so broken, they cannot be able to take that food to the market.
Yes.
One of the realities that we have seen as a result of what's happening in Ukraine, and of course because of the drought, is that the food prices are skyrocketing. You know, and there are some few regions that are blessed. They are still they're able to grow some food. They have cabbages, they have potatoes, but the roads, the infrastructure to take that to the market
is really bad.
It becomes a problem. So I saw some farmers complaining in Nairigangare, I suppose, not far from Nairobi. You know, so so that's a reality. And unfortunately also, even when we get bump harvest, the reality is that quite a significant part of that harvest ends up being post-harvest losses.
That's true.
Because of poor storage system. And we have poor pest management systems. And as a result, you harvest during the bump harvest, and you cannot be able to store that. And the market system is not streamlined.
Really good,
So we're still struggling with the supply chain system. How to get food from the surplus areas to the places that are suffering from the deficit.
Because this guy was saying, listen, government, please organize that at Kipata NYS, the buses, to just come, buses, lorries, and ferry these to regions where they're really, really, you know, in need of this basic food. So I think there's so many things that we need to sort of like level, just to make sure that we don't see a lot of people really dying from hunger. But then again, so when it comes to planning, you know, let's talk about how then governments can come in place, because come 2023, we don't want to be in a situation where please to Saidie, because you know, we're not able to feed our own because we need more food, and there's no food in the first place.
I'll look at it two ways. First of all, the short term, you know, because rains have failed, so this is an ongoing system. So if today in Kenya we have 4.2 million hungry people, we're expecting by next year that number is going to increase. By now, it is increasing. Unless something happens and we get the short rains that we expected, because 4 years in a row,
consecutive years,
and that's big. It said it's the worst in 40 years.
In 40 years, yes.
So this situation is still evolving. In Kenya, 4.2 million currently. In Somalia, 7.8 million. In Ethiopia, over 20 million.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's quite big. So in the short term, I think number one, we really need intentional resource mobilization.
All right.
There is no one individual or no one organization that can be able to sufficiently and in an effective way manage the evolving situation. So the first thing is the government to take its place, to mobilize resources, to work with development organizations, to work with donor organizations, so that we can be able to mobilize. And let's not wait for next year we start doing it now because we already know, we can see the pointers, we can see the indicators that things are not improving as yet. So resource mobilization needs to be done now. But the second one, we need proper targeting. Well, just taking food bags and distributing somewhere in Githurai or in a village somewhere, that's not sustainable. Because in even though many communities are vulnerable, there are those that are most vulnerable. And we need the food that is available, first of all, to be made available. You know, you can imagine the mothers, lactating mothers. You can imagine small children, and particularly under 5.
Under 5, yeah.
So we need proper targeting. In our experience, our communities are champions. They know what we could to do what we call community-based targeting. They set up individuals, people of integrity. They work alongside chiefs, and they're able to say in village X, these are the priority individuals. If we have got only 10 bags and we want to save rice, we want to make sure that no life is lost. Then the number 1 to 10, these are the ones, you know, and community are able to check, they're able to audit themselves.
They absolutely know.
And we just need to make sure that there is no politics when it comes to food distribution. Let's do it in a scientific way. Let's do it in a better way.
Be human.
Let's be organized. So yes, resource mobilization. The second one is proper targeting. But thirdly also, let's do continuous monitoring. Let's do continuous monitoring. And I know that development partners are available. Working with government, we have this classification where we know when the situation is moving from, you know, from severe to catastrophic, you know, proper monitoring. And let's
not wait until
we see people dead or we see children dead because of severe acute malnutrition, and that's when we are going there. So we do need proper monitoring. And finally, we want to see government in all the countries in the Horn of Africa really prioritizing peace keeping and peace building. What's happening in Ethiopia is commendable. That we are having some peace discussion in Tigray, because that's a place where we have a lot of people that are hungry. But also in other parts of the Horn of Africa, I think we would ask the governments to be in the forefront to build peace, to encourage peace, whatever can be done, because we are having the ongoing drought situation, which can quickly become into famine. And you know, it will be impossible to reach the needed situation when there is no peace,
and
when there is fighting going on.
Will take a long time, you know, reversing the situation. And even speaking to the community, some of them will tell you, listen, we don't want to fight. I don't want to fight my neighbor. But then the resources are scarce. So it's survival for the fittest. You know, whoever.
Why are you bringing your cows to a village to take our water?
And yet, that is our only source of water. So work on that. So what you said is more on the short term. What we can do now. Long term, what does it look like?
You know, in 2014, we had the Malabo Declaration when the continent of Africa met. And they were looking at why is Africa always begging for food? Because we have been blessed by God. Our continent is having some of the most fertile area. In fact, Africa can feed the whole world. We don't need Europe, we don't need America to feed us. If we get our parameters right, if we arrange ourselves, if we organize ourselves, we're able to feed the world. Look at all the countries. Look at Kenya, for example. You know, look at the sun. The sun we have is a big resource. In the next few weeks and months, Europe will not be having this beautiful sun. Ours is 12 hours a day. You know, and in those countries, maybe they'll be getting sun just a few hours. And then there is winter. They cannot be able to grow. And so, from the Marambo meeting, the decisions that was made is that the government will systematically, I mean, it continue to increase investment in agriculture. Winnie, it's a shame that agriculture employs 70% of our people in Kenya. And the industries that we have in Kenya, 65% of them are agro-based. But if you look at the investment in agriculture, you know, it's dismal. It's less than 5%. In fact, from your paper, I was reading your paper, and the report, when they analyzed the budget, it was 2.5%. That's the investment in agriculture. And this is the sector we are hoping will be able to employ 70% of our people.
Yeah.
So the Marabo Declaration, that is, we want to have agriculture being at the front line. We want to take advantage of our potential. The decision was to increase the investment in agriculture to not less than 10%.
Yeah.
And this should be done. In a country like Kenya, we do it at the national government, we do it at the county government.
As well.
If you go to the county government, how much of the budget is being
allocated.
invested in agriculture?
I mean, we've seen a number of farmers saying, listen, we're not being financed, the prices have gone up, you know, when it comes to like the cost, you know, of production is very high versus what they're getting. So some of them are like, we're done, we'll do something else until this is sorted. And we do not want that. Because at the end of the day,
that level of desperation.
Food. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one is investment. We have to increase the investment in agriculture. But also over and above that, in most of our communities, I think we need to address several factors. Climate change is here with us, and so we need now to come up with, as we said, climate smart agriculture.
Solutions,
we need to cease from depending on rain-fed agriculture.
Okay.
We cannot continue doing the same thing the same way we have always done and expect different results. You know, we know that even when rains come, it may not, we may get all the amount of rain, but you know, not spread the way it used to be in the previous years, before the situation became this dire. So we need to now graduate our farmers. And let me say this: there are several parameters for us to have functional agricultural system. It is not addressing one aspect. There are several of them. The rain-fed is one. I've seen the government focusing on fertilizer. That's good news. But you know, fertilizer, if there is no water, what are you going to do with the fertilizer? You fail. You'll be left with your fertilizer there. So it's several parameters. Consider all of them, and it is you don't have the luxury of selecting one and leaving the others.
No, we need to address all of them.
We need all the one.
Now.
The expensive input, is there. The water is big, and I really I'm grateful to see the government in Kenya talking about having water harvesting systems. If we get that done and done well at village level, you know, then we graduate more and more farmers from rain-fed agriculture, and they start growing without waiting for the rains. For the rains, The other thing is, if you look at the kind of farming we have been having, you know, all of us, it's not market-led. In the sense that there are some commodities that are, if when we grow all of it at the same time. So we flood the markets. You know, so all those dynamics.
We need to change tact in how we approach all those things. And it's a good thing that you alluded earlier on what Action Against Hunger is doing, especially in these communities. You're going even to areas that sometimes might be a little bit difficult, you know, to reach to. But of course, the question would be, is this enough? You know, what are some of those other things that maybe you feel as an organization you can do better? But even at the same time, what is it that sometimes worries you, you know, even as an organization, in terms of, you know what, maybe we could do something else?
I must say, what we're doing, we are just scratching on the surface.
There's a lot.
We are faced with huge opportunity. We see these resources. We go to West Pokot, we go to Isiolo, we go to some parts of Mandera, we go to Laikipia, different parts, when you see the potential that is there. And yet we are not utilizing this potential. I must say, whatever efforts we are doing, yes, they are commendable, yes, we are saving lives, but our intention is to address the root cause. Why are people hungry?
All those things.
Why should we continue year after year shouting to the donors we are hungry, or shouting to our neighbors, you know, we need food, and yet we have the potential. So what's getting us worried, you know, is the fact that this situation has become chronic. You know, it's year after year. And what happened is that people start getting fatigued. You know what you call the donor fatigue? I remember a few years ago, there was an initiative for Kenyans. And you can imagine the way Kenyans were so enthusiastic. We really wanted to participate. You know, and that was, I think, in relation to some counties, you know, some counties in Kenya. The expectation is that after that, at least we'll graduate a few. You know, Obviously, we are happy with some of the work that organizations like Action Against Hunger is doing, and others. We are not alone. We do have quite a number working with our development partners. We know some communities that have fully graduated. You know, they used to depend on food, even in Turkana, and now today they are not depending on food. In fact, they are food surplus.
Food secure, yes.
Yeah, their food surplus. They are able to support their neighbors. So my bigger worry, as I said, is if this situation continue like this, it will be difficult to sustain lives.
Yeah.
We are going to see very high level of severe acute malnutrition among little children, among mothers,
women,
expecting mothers, lactating mothers.
As
yeah,
well.
so the number of people dying they'll be very high. We're going to lose lives, and you can imagine losing one child.
I mean, that's one.
Who knows the child? One of the things that keep us strong and why we are moving in different parts of the world, sometimes very difficult to reach places, and even very risky, is because you do not know the child that you are saving. It may be the next Bill Gates. It may be the next William Ruto.
We never know.
Who knows? In that village in the corner somewhere in Mandera, it may be the governor of the central bank. So we know that these are resources that we don't want to lose. So whatever we can do to save the life of boys and girls, that's why we put our effort there, and we save them.
More emphasis on I mean, one death is too many, so really we can't afford to lose more people. We literally have like around 4 minutes to end the conversation. I know time flies, but of course we cannot end this without talking about COP27, the ongoing climate change meeting that is happening in Egypt, and of course this is the 5th time that this is being held in Africa, and of course there were so many commitments that were made. And one of them was the $100 billion yearly, to help in terms of fighting climate change. So the question is, do you feel, and we're talking about emissions, which we talked about earlier on, which Africa produces less, than 5% of the same. So what is it that you feel then developed nations need to do? The conversations around the loss and damage, Africa needs to be compensated for the same. The developed nations are saying, listen, we need to discuss about this, all those things. Right? So what do you feel that developed nations should do?
This is our world together.
Yeah.
And, when one part of the world is suffering, all of us at the end of the day are going to suffer. And we need to be responsible.
All right.
We need to be accountable. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of promises, but there is no follow through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk shop. And our hope is that what's going on in Egypt at the moment is not just going to be a talk shop.
It shouldn't.
Without any action.
Yes.
That there will be serious commitment. And serious commitment in 2 dimensions. First of all, reducing the emission so that we don't continue killing ourselves, hanging ourselves. And number 2, to try and rectify the damages that we have already caused.
All right.
Because you can see the amount of damages
that has already been
there is significant.
Okay. Yeah.
It's quite huge.
Yeah. Can we answer a call and then we'll come back to because I don't want to cut you short, before we end the conversation. We have Musili from Kasarani calling us today. Good morning. Musili, are you there?
I'm here. My name is Makupe Putili.
Thank you very much for calling us this morning. Do you have a question for Mr. Madenge?
Yeah, can I speak in Swahili?
Yes, go ahead.
Nauliza, tumekuwa na shida sana Kenya yetu. Kuna shida ya maji kila mahali, kunakuwa na drought. Na maji iko pale Mombasa. Tunatengenezewa mabarabara, tunatengenezewa stima, lakini hiyo maji kama ingeweza kuwa imesambaza kila mahali, ijudusiwe ikuwe inarecycliwa, ikuwe maji ambayo inaweza tumika kwa kulima na whatever. Hata hii madamu wanatengeneza hiyo, manake maji iko, lakini sasa watu wanakufa na njaa, na tunaweza tumia hiyo maji tunalima naye. Kwa nini hiyo maji iweze kutolewa? Tuachane na hii maneno ya kutengeneza maziara whatever, lituwekewe maji ambayo tunaweza kuwa tunalima naye. Manake kukiwa na maji watu hawezi lala njaa. Nafika hapa, asante sana.
Asante sana Musili for calling us this morning. Mr. Madenge, you want to take that before we go back to 27?
And I think that's very true. That's very true. Mr. Musila, thank you. I think that is the solution. In Kenya, in Africa, we have enough solutions. We have enough water.
Yeah.
we have enough rivers, we also have enough rains, we can be able to harvest that water before it goes to the Indian Ocean. What's happening when it rains, the water causes havoc, you know, as it is moving to the Indian Ocean. Indian Ocean already have enough water, and we do have, if we have a way of storing that water, if we have a way of using the water that is in the river, and even in those areas where we don't have rivers, we have underground water. So Musira is spot on.
Yeah.
If we make water available for our farmers, then we'll have solved the problem substantially.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beginning point, because any other solution without factoring the availability of water, it's fictional, it's illusion, it cannot, it's a wishful thinking.
That's true. That's true. So action needs to be taken now.
It
because
is
like
now.
we said, we do not have time. We honestly do not have time. All right, so let's just finish up on what we were talking about COP27 event as we bring this to an end. You were talking about how we expect to see solutions and we expect to see implementation of all these talks that will be happening. Not just talks, but let's see action.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I want to appeal to all of us, the developed countries, but also the developing countries.
Yeah.
Because even if our emission is retro, the kind of interest that is that Africa has generated very soon will also, we may also become major emitters. But the way I think about it is, I came across a small story that really inspired me. Somebody went to a big restaurant somewhere, and there was a big sign: enter, eat as much as you can. Okay. Somebody else will pay. Your children will pay.
Okay.
You know. And so this gentleman went into the restaurant and he ate. He ate and ate, and you know, and they kept saying, "Do you want some more?" Yes. Why? Because he said, "No, I'm not the one who is going to pay.
My children
will pay." And unfortunately, when he was just about to leave, the waiter came and gave him an invoice.
All right.
And he said, "No, you said that
the children will pay.
My children will pay."
Okay.
And he said, "No, your father also passed this way. He ate and he did not pay, and we promise that his children will pay." I want to say it's immoral.
Yeah.
It's irresponsible for us if we don't do something.
Okay.
If we don't solve our problems and we let our children or our children solve it.
Yeah.
If we don't do it, you can imagine the children, our children and children, those coming after us. Why should they pay for our mistakes?
Yeah.
We are asking all of us, you know, and I think we're responsible people, and we should be responsible. We should be accountable people.
Yeah.
The commitments we are making, let's be brave enough as we make these commitments.
Yeah.
Let's make them in a very brave way, and let's keep those commitments. Let's pay our bills.
Let's pay our
bills. Let's not our
Yeah.
children be the ones to pay.
To pay our bills. I like that. And of course, let's just close it over there. Food for thought. All right. Mr. James Mathenge, Acting Regional Director, Action Against Hunger. And this is in the Horn and East Africa region. Thank you very much for coming by this morning. Such an insightful conversation. And of course, all of us have a responsibility to play as far as mitigating, you know, drought and hunger. This is across, you know, the region in Africa, and of course, you know, the Horn of Africa, as well as other continents. So let's close it over here. But I hope that you've picked a lot of things that what you need to do as an individual as well, even as we wait for the governments, you know, to also put your promise, or that is their promises or their commitments, put them into action. So my name is Winnie Lubembe. Have yourselves a lovely day ahead and enjoy your weekend as well. I'll see you on Monday. Tomorrow is Radio Meets TV, and of course you do not want to miss that show. But for now, stay safe, God bless, and see you soon. Goodbye.